Alright, folks. Welcome back, everyone. 欢迎大家回来。今天是第527天 is day 527. Let's get into. I only added 8 yesterday, so it seems like overall, in general, I add about an average of 9 words per day. It's pretty consistent. It's not intentional. I didn't keep track of how many I add. The sessions appear to be normalizing a bit. So character studies are waning, which is good. That's intentional. And then we can start leaning in on vocabulary. I think the going rate right now is I'm leaning towards writing sentences maybe a month after, so after July. Well, considering our Boom Pro volume, so we'll check in on that in a bit. This week we have been liberating as much time as possible because I wanted to enjoy a bit of Dave the Diver on the side. And soon gonna cover some other things as a way to kind of relax a little bit. All right, let's get into the lessons.
禀报
Being ball, being was the weak one. Being is the report, and then bao is the report. So that's kind of nice. And it looks like this is more of a formal thing, being bao. And I've seen this word before. I think it was on Duolingo. Being bao. I think being is simplified though. Like, there's something about this character that got changed. This left side. The right side is the same. I don't remember how they changed this up. But it's report. So I'm gonna add to report. I know there's an extra nuance of being more of a
禀报
superior.
赘语
Because you can report in different ways. You can report as in a news report or something would be different. Or a notice. Or an announcement report. 赘语 Jay is the weak one. And it's actually more so the read than the definition. The definition surplus, we're adding surplus to it. But Jay, this is the exception. This top big part has many reads. Jay is only J is a unique one. So how do I go about it? So the differentiating factor is shellfish, which I'll have to remember to get J.
赘语发柳
Liu. Liu is the weak one. And there are only 2 characters with this at the moment. This thing here. You have Jiu. No, Jiu. Fault. And Liu. And Liu, the giveaway for the definition would deal with the silk. It's tough. Tuft. Like a tuft of cloth or hair. In this case, hair. And this says tresses. I don't actually know what a tress is, but this is also related to like dreadlocks. Actually, someone's hair particularly long, flowing, or beautiful arranged locks. Okay. Long locks, curled, or braids of hair. Okay. Guess I might as well imagine that. Right, tresses. Let me make sure about, yeah, Jill for fault. Okay.
发柳
This is more so English, I think. The read is rough. Sort of. Because it's Liu. Read and definition. Very weak. However, if we combine it with Fa, which Fa is great. Oh, wait. Actually, Fa is not that great. Because this is a tone shift. Oh, no. Oh, no. This combines a tone shift. Because, oh, no. We'll include it. We'll see. That's a tough one. I'm not sure if I'm intuiting tone shifts well.
聆听
聆听. Listen, right? Listen is the drop. It does look like ling. And the ears is supposed to be the giveaway. And then ting is stock. Ting is one of the foundations.
聆听僵尸
Jiangshi. So Jiangshi is Jiangshi. Yeah, I've never seen it spelled in English. Like oh yeah, no. I have seen it spelled in English because I always thought it was this is a different language. Gyunxi. I don't know if that's supposed to be Cantonese. I always said like Gyunxi, Guanxi, something like that, or Jiangxi. Jiangxi, Guangxi, that kind of thing. So they go by many names, but Jiangxi makes sense. It makes sense. I don't know where this reading comes from. Like, I legitimately have no idea how this spelling ends up. I'm pretty sure it's the Cantonese, right? Yeah. Yeah, Guernsey. So this is the Cantonese writing. And the reason why I know this is because Journey to the West. And like other feudal things, but they're the Chinese vampires. A popular Chinese vampire that from like a Japanese perspective is what's her name from Darkstalkers. I want to say it's May. Darkstalker. Or they're technically zombie. You can, yeah, Chinese vampires. Oh no, it's not May. It's Xiankou. Xiankou. Actually, I don't even know how to pronounce her name. It's Lele in Japan. That's interesting. And it's spelled weird, so I have no idea. I think when I said May, I think that's her twin sister. Yeah, Mei Ling, Mei Ling. Mei Ling is, or Mei Ling. No tones. Every time there's no tones, I have no idea. Yeah, Xinkou. Xiankou. She's the Chinese vampire that I would think of. Anyways, Jiangxi and a stiff corpse is really funny because that's what they look like. When they hop around, their corpse are stiff. Also, rigor mortis is a thing. Yeah, Chinese vampire, zombie, all of them. When I was younger,
僵尸
I'm like 僵尸是什么, right? And when they get translated, sometimes they would say it's a zombie, a Chinese zombie, and then sometimes it's a Chinese vampire. So I remember clearly early on, I'm like, well, they're just Chinese vampire zombies because their characteristic is defined by what they appear like. And you have that while Xiankou doesn't do this, the classical like hopping, like the stiff body hopping is what you see when you see the like the zombie representation of it. It's interesting. Practice a bit of.
僵尸
If it wasn't for Guernsey underneath, Guernsey or Guernsey, underneath, I wouldn't have thought of Chinese vampire. Jiangxi is close enough, I suppose.
聆听 禀报
Oh, that one really helps. This one is so questionable.
话了
Anything about this, even the English is rough about that one. This one's the read.
赘语干涸
He, so he is a like a 70-30 problem. So the strongest character, the strongest side is gu, like gu, as opposed to he. But he, there's a precedence for he. There's also a precedence for ge. And this is one of the exceptions. The other he was recent actually. Brown was the other he. A good example. Actually, could use a different character. Don't remember. So I have to keep that in mind. And then gang he helps out with the drying up. The drying up can be connected with he. This one is a little weird because it has water in it. However, it also has solid in it to get dried up. Like, because this is solid.
干涸攥拳头
John Trento, I don't know, we couldn't find a really good example, but John is really wild. Like John, for me to get to the meaning of this character is rough. The read is fine. The read, because of how exotic the character is. John becomes John. There are 3 or 4 very exotic characters that have a bunch of common radicals put together. Like all of these radicals are common. Big, thread, right? Big thread, bamboo, fingers, and the eye. All of these are categorical radicals. So it's like there are 3 or 4 characters out of the 4,000-ish characters that fill this unique category, where basically nearly all of the radicals are categorical radicals, and they usually are not found together. Like found together in very commonly, like because they're categorical. They're categorical radicals, so they tend not to be found together. They're usually coupled with something like this, like where, oh no, these are pretty, these are a little bit rough. Like here, like the middle one, Chen, there are radicals, like the hat, right? While the bottom is a categorical radical, the fingers, this is still the fingers. These 2 things are related right here. That's categorical, but there will be another radical that is typically not categorical. So, and then when you have them stacked on top of each other, I'm just like, I have no idea what that means. It could mean a lot of things, and we have to remember, or at least I try to remember it as a unique case. So we have like 3 or 4 of those characters. The other one is like Chong, I think it's one of them. I can't even recall them. They're pretty tough. And this thing means grasp, or like to grip something. And there are other characters. There are definitely 3 or 4 other characters for holding something within your hand, or holding with both hands, or like hugging. There's quite a lot of grips. So this one was tough. There's literally a clench. So like you don't have to clench one's fists with clench by using grip. So I don't know. This one's interesting. So we added fist basically to the grip. So now you're clenching. And this might not help out that much with the idea of gripping as opposed to clenching. Clenching is 支. No, 支. 支 is the clenching one that I'm thinking of. And I don't know if you can say 直拳头. 直拳头 sounds like you could probably still clench your fist. Right. Alright, well, let's go. What was the craziness about this? Something like Zeus is... He broke out, he got his fingers on some... a big bamboo, like a big silk bamboo, like piece of paper, and he like drew stuff on it. He gripped it. I don't know. This is wild. I have no idea what I'm gonna do with that at the moment. But 拳头 is good.
算拳头，
拳头。
折纸，
折纸. 折, you're learning something to do with your finger, and having paper next to it is helpful because it's folding. Folding is what you learn. Just gonna put origami in the second column so I can just type origami.
折纸，
So this one helps out really
折纸，
well. This one's pretty good too.
干涸，
And work in progress. At most work in progress.
算拳头，
Okay. So we're gonna keep at it with characters only until I can get some free time. Like more free time. I think July is when we catch up on words. We're doing word discovery for the time being. So some steps at a time.
了，for
Okay. Freebies.
力，
That one's pretty strong because we also have Japanese on top. This is
扶，
pretty, whoops, not bow, but to bend over. I mean, it is bow too. Like, to bow is to bend over. This one's pretty good. We used it a couple times already. It's useful for like the act of creating your body, like lowering your body in a way. So it got a lot of use over time, which is great. I wanna say
找，
that this one's weird. Yeah, this one's weird. And it's a remember or you don't situation. It's later in the life cycle, and it only has like 3 uses. And draw is the basis. Draw is the foundation. And then because of draw, we also have paw. These 2 are really strong. And then I've rarely ever used claw in this way. In fact, I don't even know what is. Do we have a vocabulary word for this? No, we don't have a vocabulary word for. Oh no, sorry. Yeah, we don't have a vocabulary word for this. I imagine I'm not gonna put a vocabulary word until it's weak. So we'll see when and where it's gonna be weak. Let's take a look. It's probably paw print. Drawing. Okay. So and then the rest looks like a Xenopus. Oh, that's interesting. There's a deep cut for Xenopus. Yeah, so okay. So I do see a bit of claw and paw. So they are lined up with a bit of the oh. There's also figurative things too. A crampon? Oh. Intriguing. Yeah. But we just take it for face value for the time being. Oh, the read is the tough one. Read is tougher. That's not ho. Why are you not ho? Oh, no. Hua. Hua. No, ho? Oh, no, it is ho. Oh, Marquise, the person. So, ho. This creates 3 hoes. 4 hoes, right? So, the difference is, 1 stroke. I wasn't reading again. The 1 stroke. And all 4 of these have the person. So they are differentiated by the other thing. So ho is the weakest. Do I have a marquise? Probably noble house marquis. Ooh. That I might add this. We'll add this. Jie is weak, but Jie is very strong. That's a neat one. Kind of reminds me of
Mo.
it has to be a plant. Mo is also underneath too for grind.
Ji.
It's to level, right? Reach is the other D. That's related. I want to say
Yan.
Now there are 2 of these. I'm gonna say okay. Actually, the other one is right on top. The other one's right on top, actually. Now these are, I think, so these are different swallows. The swallow with the mouth is like to swallow something, and then this swallow is the bird swallow. So where's the bird? This one is one of the exceptions. Oh no, wait. Yeah. This is one of the exceptions to the bird. Like there's no bird indicator on here. Why? I don't know.
Yi.
I have no idea why that's the case. Okay, this is there's a 50-50 on this too. And we just went over the foundation one. The foundation one is Chen, but Chen is springtime. This is not springtime. This is
Juan.
It's like descendant or dependent, like people that are dependent on you, which I think of as like the ones you take care of. Juan kinda looks like it. Kinda looks like it.
Ho.
Okay. I immediately want to type tongue, but that's It's party, right?
党
Yeah, political party. That one is weak. It's pretty weak right now. There's there's some vocabulary for it though. This one is
习
a bit weak, but there is Japanese. Oh no, wait. This is okay. So this can be mixed up. It can be mixed up with deceive, but this is flag. Yeah. So I didn't read carefully there. This is a turn, a flex on the read. It's not you. Chu. It's chu. Oh. What? What does it mean? What? Chang? Oh, wrong tone. Oh no. I have another phrase. I have another vocabulary word that's a tone shift on Chang. Oh, actually, maybe it's not. Maybe I'm remembering it incorrectly. Hold up. Now I gotta double check. For I think I might have encoded improperly. Let me see if I can find it. No, it's a tone shift. It's a tone shift. So this is where the complication comes in. I'm trying to stay away from tone shift for the time being, but the reason why I wrote Chang, because this can be Chang. It doesn't have to be Chang. That's so some of these characters, if there's a tone shift, I'll probably say it's a tone shift. And whenever I think about, like, sometimes when I type 4 instead of 1, it's because there is an example where there's a tone shift, where the character is a 4 and not a 1. So tones are a little bit tougher, and usually it's resolved, in my opinion, it's more so up to vocabulary, because the decider of what the tone is about the character that is attached to it. So there is a merit to, like, wanting to discover words for the sake of reading a character. Right. So this would be one of them. I don't know how much of a problem other people may have about this if you have no basis. However, for me, whenever I hear a concept, like this is strength, right? Strength. And when I hear strength, there are various times when it's 3 and not 2. So I have been pretty lenient on myself about that, and hopefully that, or when I think about it, when I look at the words enough, I will see and be able to group them together, like in which cases are the 3 or the 2. It happens with 1 and 4 as well. 1 and 4. I think 1 and 4 is the most common one that I have, because 1, if you make 1 shorten, it sounds like a 4. So I'm relying on my audio cues, and sometimes it doesn't work out. Anyways, that's how I share that.
除
I'm gonna say toad. Yeah. Okay. Oh, this is pivot to 3, right? Yeah. So air lobes. I don't know if. Yeah, so there's a silence. Hang on, like, let me see if my suspicions I don't think so, right? Not for this one. It's usually the silence. This one is silence probably fairly often. Okay. So it's not true for all of them. I need to eventually figure out why I type certain things. It's not all sunshine and rainbows when you know more information, right? I think this is a great example of
我
as you expand your information, when you keep on gaining new information, right? Learning new information, organizing it is like an upper level. So when you're trying to comprehend things, it involves manipulating the information you have and then eventually applying it. Like organizing the information comes next. Then comparative analysis, comparative like comparing and contrasting the information, and then applying it is then, and then creating after that. So we're kind of in that phase now where I still have existing knowledge that I need to organize with the knowledge that has come in from HanziHero. At least that's what I tell myself. um oh no, it's yeah, xia. And how do I know that it's a 50-50? It's because this double pedestal thing has a huh, right? Glorious huh. That's why I typed huh. Because I was thinking glorious. But it's the mouth. Mouth is frightened. I can probably rewrite this. Yeah. Okay. Xena. Bathroom. Auditorium. Yes. Helping. Stories of her glorious exploits. Oh, the tackle being frightened, something like that. Okay. Oh, I immediately want to type Chan, but it's not. Oh, it's gotta be Yen for Eves. The bamboo is supposed to be the key. Let's go see if Eves line up with Yi. If it lines up with Yi. Qiao Yan? Oh, Wu Yan is okay. All right, I'll take Wu Yan. Wu Yan will help me out with the Eves. Eves is actually a new English word for me. Like, I can't believe how well I can. I suppose I've been exposed to this word over and over again between Japanese and Chinese, and I haven't ever uttered the word Eves until now. I'm not even sure if it's pronounced Eves. Hold up. Gotta make sure.
Eves.
Okay, it is pronounced Eves. So that's how unsure I am about Eves.
将 蒙
Lemon, that's either you know it or you don't.
下
This one's a bit of a mixed bag at the moment. Because I think of xie sometimes. Hot dog. Hamper spray. I'm torn between two.
棋
Yikes. Oh wait. Is this cream? Okay. Like in Bing Qiling, in Bing Qiling, second cream. The spray thing is spraying cream is the thing. Hamper is so this is a good example of the categorical group. So left is the categorical. So cream is, kind of water related thing, like a fluid related thing. And then the right, it's simply, to me, it's simply for the read. This is qi. That's qi is one of the dominant sounds. What this means, it means a lot of things. So like there would be the base for t, right? But t is one of the dominant reads for this hamper. And that's kind of a good way to contrast between what I mean by that one character, Jun. Jun has like, it's taking all the things on the left and just slamming it into a radical and or slamming it into a character, and you're like, I don't know. I don't even know what it sounds like most of the time, like looking at it.
强
I'm gonna be curious on how. I'm probably gonna do what I did. So Wanikani, the Japanese side of things, Wanikani has forced my hand. They gave me an idea where they were trying to get different reads and how they link them together. They really don't. However, they do create separate mnemonics for the different reads in Japanese. In Japanese, multiple reads exist. It's more the rule than the exception, right? So they would have two different mnemonics, and I would start to tie them together with a singular mnemonic. Now, in Chinese, HanziHero took the approach of assigning one dominant read for each character, so the mnemonic would be even more detailed, but for that one read. Now, in the future, I'm basically going to take the N part of the primary read and use that primary read to create a mnemonic to the secondary read, or the second in order of exposure, as in no longer is it based on whether the read is frequent or not, is which one did I learn first, and it creates the association with the second one. So I think that is going to be a topic for maybe a little bit later. It's 2 or 3 months. It's probably going to be the next topic for the next 100 days. So the 600-day review in another 3 months, or less, a little under 3 months, going to be the topic. Because when people talk about, hey, I'm only learning this because this is the most frequent, and this is learning based on frequency occurrence, like, oh, this is rare, I'm never going to use it, etc., all that. If you're, in my opinion, if you're an intermediate or an advanced person, that would be very reasonable, because the foundations of your use case is going to form your association. Now, I think it's also inappropriately used a lot of times when someone is advanced or intermediate, because they think that memorizing or doing things that are rare based on the frequency is something that they're going to do. Like, for example, how rare is it for an English speaker to learn Chinese? That's already rare. So when you're thinking about like, oh, well, I'm only going to learn the things that are frequently Chinese, it's like, all right, as long as you move to China. Like, what I'm genuinely being as reasonable as possible, because you're basing yourself on not leveraging your existing knowledge to learn something new, despite arguing what occurs more frequently. Like, for example, how do you remember specialized knowledge in the future? You certainly don't learn how to do that well if the first thing you think about is, oh yeah, I never remember things that aren't common. Then how are you ever going to memorize specialized knowledge or build specialized knowledge? You won't. And that is fine as long as that person in the future will say, well, I only remember all the basic stuff. I only remember generalized things because I only care about the bang for my buck, right? And I'm definitely a preacher of, like, a person who advocate for learning all the generalized stuff, the foundational stuff and whatnot. It doesn't quite always line up with frequent stuff. Frequency, popularity does not make for foundations. Like that's those two are often, they overlap to some extent, because foundations are often found in what is popular and frequent. It doesn't guarantee that it is true for all the cases. In fact, I would say it's more of a like 60-40 nowadays. What's popular and what's trending is often not foundational anymore, because on the internet, what is popular and trendy, like perception wise, like you could say, oh well, Chinese people say this, like the Chinese people that are on the internet disseminating information on the internet. And what happens is, oftentimes the sources of popular and trending information is sensational on the internet. So I'm still saying more than 50% of foundational work is still true, because there are content creators and people who disseminate information that continue to promote foundational knowledge. There are arguably just as incentive, like competitively incentive, for trendy, popular things that go against foundation. That's the nature of the internet. That's the thing that I'm a bit concerned about, because when someone tells me like SRS is needed to learn something, the answer is no. Like this SRS. Like when someone tells me, oh, SRS is better than traditional learning, like if you failed at traditional learning, anything is like, you will see everything as better than traditional learning. Now, the question is, does that mean that traditional learning is not foundational? That is where we get into the difference between vibe coding and learning foundational syntax. Like, which comes first? The answer is usually both, you know, a bit of column A and a bit of column B. However, in here, I think the whole idea of like frequency of words, frequency of characters, without considering its functionality of the task you're doing, this comes up a lot, where when someone says, oh yeah, I'm never going to see this character because this character is low frequency. I'm like, yeah, but the purpose of the product that you're using is to read characters. So the frequency is way higher when you're reading characters, as in the task you're doing is a task that's outside of your stated metric. This was a recent thread, like every 2 or 3 months, I would say even less, every 2 months there might be a new user and there will be a post about like, oh, so hey, what do you guys thought about the rare characters? I wish I could just like skip them or reorganize them or like just ignore them in general because they're not frequent. I'm like, well, you're ignoring characters. Like, it is frequent to know these characters when you're reading characters. It is infrequent when you're reading the example that the person gave, like, oh, in casual conversation or in whatever text they have, yeah, that might be rare. However, the task that you're focused on is not the same anymore. So this is where the apples and oranges comes into play quite often, where like, oh, this, you could say something like, I'm gonna learn how to ride a bike, right? Like, I want to ride a bike. And then you jump the gun and say, well, everyone rides at this speed. This is where the internet hustle culture creates such a big dissonance. Like, oh, everyone draws anime, female anime characters to get better at drawing anime. I'll start doing that, right? But that's not the foundation of getting to draw that. So it's a little from column A and column B. Like, how do people get to drawing anime female characters? Not by starting there, technically. Some people would say, oh yeah, I did start there. I'm like, because everyone else did and it's a popular trend. It's like, well, that is drawing without foundations. So this is what I mean by this stuff, where you gotta take note of these things. And for myself, I'm trying to like kind of tease that apart, because I know quite a few things that don't have any foundations. That's basically a consequence, in my opinion, of the native speaker fallacy. I recognize that I have those too, where occasionally I'm like, wait a minute, I'm pretty sure it's also this. Now I could sit here and say, well, let's just rewrite the entire book and figure out all the stuff that I don't agree with because I never use it this way, or know that it can be used this way and you add it to and organize your information with a new addendum, right? That's a little bit of from column A and from column B. So for myself, I usually approach things the latter than the former. If someone says something, you don't immediately say it's wrong because you haven't ever encountered it. It's happened quite, I would say 9 out of 10 times. That's the conversation if I engage in a debate, that's usually the conversation that I'm having. Someone would say something like, they would indicate like, oh, well, the real way to do this, the correct way to do this, and then they would cite some sort of frequency, exposure, anecdotal information, and I would say, then why do I think of it in a different way? Have you considered that? And they would be like, well, that's because you're wrong. And I'm like, you mean I'm wrong to exist, to have examples that don't corroborate with you? So, and then it would be like, what type of person I'm talking to. They're either going to think I'm delusional, and that's the narrow-mindedness that usually ends with basically two people parting ways, not exchanging any ideas. That's fairly common, right? It's like, oh, you don't agree with me, so I'm leaving. It's like, okay, that's fair. It's not like I can change the events of how my memory works or what my life is like. So that, to me, is what happens on the internet, where sometimes popular, trending things are seen as higher in standard, and language is no exception, where someone would completely ignore a certain thing and then project its importance by suggesting based on how many people do things. And hear me out, it'll work really, really well as long as you want to be very, very good at being a generalist. Like someone who has generalized knowledge and can work to your advantage by putting it all together, right? However, there's one caveat. Eventually, this person is going to go on and want to be considered an expert. if that's what your goal is, to become an expert, to become fluent in something, or to a high standard, that usually involves different skills. And the different skills is being open minded, knowing the nuance of things, knowing the details, and knowing the exceptions and the things that you basically chose to ignore and practice ignoring and trivializing. So that's what's at odds with the later things. You can pick out a person who's a generalist who thinks they are specialists because they act like they're generalized knowledge in which everyone is supposed to know, right? Because it's either trendy, popular, or it's foundational. All three of these occur with high frequency or high enough frequency, and they would talk like they have no understanding of nuance. That is one of the greatest indicators, in my opinion, of when someone has specialized knowledge or not. Someone comes by and corrects me. It's like, oh, at this one point, they see me struggling with a read and they correct me. And it's like, oh, can you explain me the origin of this read? Can you tell me with more detail about the nuances of the grouping of this character and its read so it can help me remember it? Give me more details than other than saying this is the right read. Because that would be the separator between someone who is someone I could trust due to their nature of being a specialist versus someone who simply has generalized knowledge who thinks that everyone else is below them. That happens quite often where someone would spout out a bunch of details like, I like to think that most people know that. So you're neither helping me nor enriching my perspective because you're choosing to oversell yourself, like overreach. And that's kind of the thing that I want to keep myself in check. Like, in no way do I think because my parents speak Chinese and my family speak Chinese that I don't have gaps in my knowledge. In fact, oftentimes the human condition, like humans, when they get habitually used to something, they notice less and less about it. Like, things become less and less explicable to an outside audience. So I'm learning to explore that again. Like, every time I go to try to explain something, Mock is someone that I've been speaking to the last couple of days, and I try to come up with a Fujianese example and parallel it with like Cantonese and Mandarin. I struggle. It's very tough because you have that symptom. You probably seen this comically before in skits and content creators. It's a very well-known phenomenon or illustrated phenomenon where you would tell someone, oh yeah, I do speak different languages, and you have like this friend, and the friend's like, oh hey, tell me something tell me something in that language. And then the native speaker, the person who is multilingual, etc., would sit there and say, and they would struggle. They would struggle with how to come up with an example that is either germane or instructional to the person that you're really close to who's asking for it. That's what I mean. When someone cuts corners when they're learning something and they choose out of efficiency that they consistently and constitutively choose to focus on the big bang for your buck, understand that also means that you don't practice any skills related to learning and retaining specialized knowledge. It may not impact a lot of people who simply want to be conversational, right? Or simply want to have an overall like serviceable proficiency. The part that I get a little bit miffed by or pet peeve is when someone uses their generalized knowledge and they present themselves inappropriately like someone who has great insight. Like, especially to me, where whenever I ask them to explain something, it would be simply to say, well, that's the wrong answer. This is the right answer. Like, well, you're not here to help me learn anything. It sounds like you spent most of your time memorizing all the most efficient things, and that is useful. It allows you to be conversational. It doesn't really tell me much on how I would remember the detail I'm trying to remember when it's spotty, right? When you make a mistake, it's the rare stuff, not the not rare stuff. So my basic plug is that when you get used to remembering rare stuff that sticks out, stuff that is hard to remember, don't be surprised, in my opinion, that those skills also have related uses in correcting mistakes, especially rare mistakes. So despite things being infrequent, how popular it is, how trendy it is, how when and where you're going to use it, the skills that involve acquiring esoteric knowledge, specialized knowledge, differentiating in similarities are also involved in analyzing rare occurring things. And one of the things that I specifically notice is the ones that tend to generalize and focus on high frequency and repetition and recognition due to like mere exposure. There are also people who are like arguably deficient at meeting their satisfaction. I'm not saying a standard. I'm talking about being satisfied, whatever their satisfactory level is, portraying to me that they are satisfied with how they solve mistakes, because mistakes are rare. Mistakes are the rare occurrence of your life, right? No one like goes around living and say 9 out of 10 times they made a mistake. Mistakes stick out because they are the rare by nature, right? So whenever someone says, oh, I choose to always ignore, the exceptions and choose to ignore people's details and stuff, like, I'm not surprised that correlates really, really well, very well, with your inability to correct mistakes and learn from them, or innovate and expand, because there's no skills involved in focusing on rare occasions. So that's a really big corollary. Someone who is excellent at fixing mistakes, or like curating their own mistakes and innovating and making up for their own mistakes, they are also correlation. Okay, so we're talking about correlation, take it with a grain of salt. It also tend to correlate with someone who pays attention to details. So when you get an expert, maybe like quote Dogen or something, you treat everything like it matters. It's not necessarily about frequency, trends, and stuff. You treat most details like it matters, because when you engage in trying to remember rare details, how to get them in your head and how to use them and organize them, those skills are involved in other rare occurrences. And one of the rare occurrences are mistakes. And right now, for the record, the 4 or 5 people who are struggling with like the task of learning their target language, usually is Japanese or Chinese in this case, they keep repeating the same mistakes. Like, it's the same, like, to me, they're very similar mistakes with a foundational commonality, and they have a continual deficiency in understanding that exists because they practice the opposite. They practice on consistently focusing on thinking it's okay to ignore like the details and get by passing. Just get by hand waving things and not putting in the effort of looking at nuance and the nuance of both nuanced information or the nuance of their mistakes. Like, for example, how do you solve a troubled character? Oh, just repeat more. That's a generalized problem for a specialized mistake. Like, if it worked before, it would have worked for the mistake. The nature of that mistake is a bit different. Like, how do you get better at memorizing all your leeches? It's clearly not by repeating more. The odds of doing and doubling down the same method that led to the creation of the leech or the ghost or whatever you want to call it, the thing that leeches in SRS, that is not the same routine. The product of that routine, the odds of double downing, like, oh, I'm just gonna bootstrap even more, I'm just gonna grind this even harder, you're not learning anything, in my opinion, about how the nature of that mistake. You're trying to brute force the mistake because your entire behavioral pattern is ignoring nuance. So that also means that you ignore, naturally, you're inclined to ignore the nuance of your mistakes. So whenever I see that pattern, I typically ask the person, so why do you think you made the mistake? How did you make the mistake? What triggered the mistake? And they would say, well, it's because I didn't repeat enough. I'm like, that's not the answer. That is very unlikely to be the answer. I mean, it could be part of the answer, certainly. You could make an argument it's part of the answer. Oh, you didn't study enough. And I'm like, what do you mean by you didn't study enough? It's like, I didn't go over it enough. I'm like, that's not it. Like, I'm willing to wager that the major factor is not doing the same thing is the solution. Like, doing the same thing is the reason why you did not remember that character, because all of the other instances, the other 90% of those instances, was solved by that method. Like, if that was indeed the reason, it would be pervasive. You would be failing instead, right? Because a generalized solution doesn't address specialized problems. Making mistakes are rarer than being successful. It's a really big topic. Maybe we'll definitely go over it in the future because I'm at that point. So how do I get a different routine? How am I mixing up the routine to address the rarity situation? And all of this stuff is put the fries in the bag situation. When someone comes to me and say, oh, why are you spending so much time on this low frequency problem? What do you think mistakes are? Like, mistakes are low frequency problems. Like, if you're counting all the times you're successful, then those methods are foundational. That's good, right? If the foundations carry you through 90% of the stuff, that makes them high frequency, probably popular and trendy, and also a splash of foundation. If you see me have a problem, I'm not talking about foundations anymore, right? Like, if the problem exists and you're already an intermediate and an advanced learner, then the problem does not exist. The solution doesn't exist in the foundations. It exists in the nuances of your mistake. It's a really big, in my opinion, it's going to be a classical life lesson that I'm going to probably harp on for the next 2 years, probably in the context of language learning. You do not get better at analyzing the nature of rare occurrences if you choose to think that you prioritize knowledge and study on the most common occurrences. What is a more common occurrence than making a mistake? Getting it right. Especially through memory and recognition. You get most of the things right through memory and recognition. And then time comes 2 years later, they're like, hey, what do you do to retain that information? It's like, well, it's rarer. It requires a rarer, more in-depth routine than memory and recognition, that's for sure. And here I sit here and I've been told 2 or 3 times now by people I follow that their solution to doing better on an exam that requires a higher level of retention and comprehension, their example or their approach is to do more memorization and recognition. Like, if it didn't work the first time, you might get a modest improvement, possibly a modest improvement. That is someone who doesn't learn, in my opinion, does not learn or don't want to learn, or maybe they're just habitually low effort. They do not want to put in the effort to understand the nuance of their problems. They want to drill and routinely spend more and more effort on a scaling problem. Crazy thought, but it's not so crazy when you can see it in the example of how frequently it is. So I like to encourage others. It's not putting any particular person. I'm thinking about like a hypothetical situation. Look to yourself and ask yourself, is the thing that you're doing rare or generalized? Because generalized things, you can get a lot of value from learning foundations when you have generalized things, right? Like learning the foundations of tones and learning the foundations. That's where you start. So when you become intermediate and advanced, that avoidance behavior of always prioritizing things will come back. It'll come back to habitually condition you to ignore details. And it ends up being, in my opinion, those details that restrict you from ever becoming advanced in anything. That's the whole idea. When you become advanced, you are interested in the details. The question is, do you have the habits in place? Otherwise, it's going to be laborious. It's very, very likely going to be laborious, and it can be a glass ceiling in the future. Like, constantly telling yourself, oh, it's important, it's not a big deal. You can ignore the details. Oh, it's not a big deal. I only made the mistake this one time, and I'm never gonna need to I won't make it again next time. That is in my opinion, the broken record that I observe on a daily basis. You could address it. Think of it as a positive thing, right? Your investment here, while it's going to be rare occurrence in the future, it's still going to be something that occurs. Like, assuming you're not going to make a mistake, that's wild. It's practically the person is practically telling me that they're not going to make the same mistake again. Like, oh, I'm just going to try harder. I'm going to try to memorize and space out my repetition on my routine again, and the problem isn't going to happen again. Some part of that problem is going to likely happen again because there was no accounting. There's no accountability for the mistake you made. So I know this for probably fairly safe because someone can learn Japanese for a year, quit, and then learn the same thing again for a year with a similar approach and quit, and then the third time around they will still feel like they have learned nothing in every stretch of the imagination, both the Japanese and the way they learn, because there was not a change between the first, second, or even third time. To me, sometimes that is that old adage that, repeating the same thing, expecting different results is kind of a testament to insanity, right? It might not seem so insane when you can see that, or it may seem insane when to a person who no longer thinks that way. It is very sane for someone who is caught in their own habits. Like, you ask someone, hey, can you tell me a detail about the movie that you say you really like? And that person's like, well, I just kind of like the overall vibe of the movie. I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised if that person has a problem solving problems, like understanding the nature of their mistake. Because usually someone who's detail oriented is necessary for those tasks. And for the record, a human being can do both. So I'm trying to give the air of, ironically, there are people who conditionally rely on generalized and foundational routines as a crutch. On the other side of things, you can also have someone who focuses so much on the details and the nuances without understanding the foundations, right? The generalized things. It's both. And I'm giving an example in which someone who thinks the things they don't like to do, which is studying, right? Studying is something that people typically don't like to do because it takes a lot of time. So they try their best to ignore all the details and the nuances, reduce it so it's more efficient. And at the cost, at the trade-off, when they go to eventually do specialized knowledge, it may never happen. And then there are the opposites, which I do encounter from time to time, where someone has incredibly specialized knowledge and there are gaps in their foundation. That usually happens when someone has done something for such a long time that they no longer concern themselves with the foundation. So the two most likely scenario is someone who has done, like, who's become so specialized that they forgot how to explain, or they no longer engage in explaining foundations, and there can be a weakness in their foundation. So eventually they would have to go and revisit the foundations to the successful people, right? The specialists will go back to the drawing board to review their foundations in order to upkeep it again. That's their solution. And then the person who's very generalized, they would have to learn how to specialize. That involves solving your mistakes, because you can't become a specialist if you can't solve your mistakes, even at a general standpoint. And I think that's the first obstacle, in my opinion. One of the earliest maybe like a philosophical learning obstacles for going from a beginner to an intermediate, and maybe even an intermediate to an advanced. If you think you learned something enough, repeating the very basic foundations is not going to improve dramatically your upkeep. That, to me, MAKU talked about the SATs. SATs is a really big reason that I'm saying this right now, because oftentimes people's solution to improving their English is to do the same thing that they have done their entire life in order to prepare for the SATs. The SATs is an upper level of specialization. They are testing your comprehension, not your memorization and recognition skills. So whenever someone goes to prepare for an SAT, a GRE, or MCAT, or something of a higher nature, and their solution is, I'm just going to sit down and memorize more, the odds of that impacting you, even though it only took you this far when you were doing it for pretty much your entire life, is going to be very slim. The margin of improvement is very unlikely, nearly highly improbable, that is going to significantly impact your performance. Like, you've been doing it for most of your life. Doing it more now, like memorizing more vocabulary now, despite being an intermediate plus native speaker of English, is not going to improve that comprehension. So that's where the general ballpark of the people that I'm interacting with, they're either going to university or higher education, or they're graduating from high school, right? And all of these levels deal with an increase in your nuance, an increase in detailed information. So I can't, if I had $1 for every time someone says, oh, they already know a lot about English, now the way to improve their English is to memorize more things, I probably would have enough for a NVIDIA card or something, like a 5090 at this point. I've heard it at least 1,000 times. The solution this over the last couple of years, the solution to become an intermediate and an advanced learner, they claim, right? The person claims that they have a good basis of their English. They got A's in English in high school, and then when they go to prepare for like an examination to get into college, their first inclination is to use the same strategy that didn't work in high school. Memorization, recognition. Like, if it didn't work all the way up to high school, what are the chances that it's going to substantially work? Repeat it again. Like, that's you've had a lot of practice. There's a lot of practice in memorization and recognition. It's not the solution. Like, it's rarely the solution, because you're addressing a rare problem now. What is the rare problem? You're going to college. College is not a common thing. It's a rare thing. It still is a rare thing, right? To put into context. And then, you know, the big talker will come by and say, well, I mean, you're doing the common thing of learning another language, learning a language that someone as a child in a different country would have already known all this stuff. It's like, well, you're not that child. It's a rare case. Like, that child isn't learning your language as an adult. So that's incredibly inappropriate. Now, there are things that you can transfer between them. However, when someone tells me, oh yeah, Japanese people don't learn like this when they were a kid, it's like, well, you weren't a kid when you weren't Japanese when you were a kid. That's what I mean by, like, grain of salt. It's a little from both, but generally speaking, the one that I tackle most is someone projecting like they're not a rare case. Learning a second language when you're older is a exception, not exceptional, not common. So when you're going to consider all your methods, take that into account, right? The problems you may have may not be the same problems your example is based on. So, like, that's where the cognitive dissonance relies so heavily when someone says, like, oh, you know, my problem with learning a language is my memory isn't as good anymore because I'm an adult now and kids have better memory. Like, that is incredibly myopic, misunderstood, almost misinformation, actually, because oftentimes these people go around projecting that somehow your memory has degraded so far from your child that it makes you incapable of learning new things. That's preposterous. You are, I can't even emphasize how much an adult is capable, again, capable of learning. They simply choose not to. And that, to me, is the foundation of what I'm saying here. Habits. Habits is preferred when you're an adult. You have entrained yourself to want to do things really, really well, and you have a set of habits. The older you get, the more resistant you are at wanting or conditionally learning new things. Different tasks, different things. So it's pretty poetic that the hyper focus on certain things can prevent one from seeing the obvious, and then the hand waviness can prevent someone from seeing the things that require focus. So as an adult, most of the time is adults hyper focus because their habits are incredibly generalized. So your solution to everything is the same. It's very similar as an adult. Your solution as a child is very rapidly spurious. Like, when you ask a child how they're going to solve a problem, like, the younger they get, the less experience they have, the more wild their solutions are. Like you give a child a ball and you ask them, okay, help me solve this problem. If you take a child on any given day, they will continue to explore and have different solutions. As an adult, you'll have probably one or two solutions that you invested so much of your time into, right? And that is not because an adult can't learn new things. It's largely, in my opinion, their habits are so much more invested than a child. So the old adage about like the stereotype about learning language, oh, learn like when you're a child. Yeah, some aspects of child, like being open-minded, is probably something a child does by habit. Like it is their default. Adults do not do that by default. They actually rely on their intuition and their experience. So how do you learn new things? Well, you try to understand its relationship with your old things. And nowadays, high school students are so locked in their way already that a standardized test to test comprehension, the solution is to practice memorization and recognition. Pretty, like, it's not my point, right? I'm not here to be someone's guardian. I am also not a hired professional, so it's often not my responsibility. I usually wait until that person asks me for something and I would say something, and then it's their responsibility to take it or integrate it or adjust it. Generally speaking, though, I am in a position where I do witness the same people repeating the same mistakes even at a young age. They continue to repeat the same strategy, modify minimally, and repeat again and again the same strategy. And then when they're upset and disappointed at whether their strategy works or not, that is crazy how young it is. Usually, in my opinion, when you're deciding to go to college, open-mindedness is not so closed off yet, right? In order to specialize, usually narrow-mindedness helps. Like you're narrowing your field of view in order to specialize in something. However, when you're going to college, you have yet for any reason to be so narrow-minded. And studying and learning, becoming so early on narrow-minded in learning, that, in my opinion, is going to be a rude awakening. Otherwise, I mean, you could end up like most people who find satisfaction in saying, no, college is not for me. I prefer not to have to redefine my learning strategies over and over again in order to account for the nuances of the problems I will encounter. That's perfectly fair, right? College is not for everyone. However, for me, most of the people I meet are either going to college, in college, or want to go beyond college. And that's usually when you get scholars and intellectuals. And the requirement is that you remain open-minded as much as you can habitually feel comfortable with, because you have to require to be in a state of learning for a longer period of time. It is a choice that humans make, in my opinion. It's a choice that adults make. How attentive you are to staying open-minded to specialize before specializing is in my opinion, habitually cautious decision over time. I still feel a little bit ambivalent at my responsibilities when I witness young students go into college and they tell me that their solution to any of the problems that they have so far is to do the same thing they've been doing for the first 18 years of their lives, or at least the last 4 years of conscious thought of learning, like the last 4 years of high school. How are you gonna succeed in college is by repeating and refining what you've learned in high school. That is part of the picture. If it is already failing to produce results, it is unlikely to be part of the solution. It is very unlikely to be part of the solution. That's playing catch up. As in, if you're failing now and your goal is to do exactly what you're going to do in high school, you're trying to catch up with the things you already know, in addition to building on top of that within the same time frame, because you're catching up to the standards, right? I hope that in the future, these people that I've been interacting with are going to be satisfied with their level of comprehension that reflects their focus. I think that's probably what I want to say here. You can be perfectly happy with it as long as it meets your expectation. So, when a high school student tells me that their solution to improving their SAT scores is to focus on memorization and recognition, and then they perform poorly on the SATs, or they perform poorly based on their expectations, I'm not going to be the one that I'm going to be the one, if they ask me, to tell them that, well, you focused on memorization and recognition. You didn't focus on comprehension. The odds of even doing a fraction of the time to focus on comprehension, because comprehension takes a longer, in my opinion, a disproportionately longer time than memorization and recognition when it comes to the mechanics of it. So spending the time to cover a fraction of what you need to cover with comprehension in mind will likely produce more results than spending all of your time trying to memorize and recognize something. Right? Consider it a forward investment in your thinking skills and your learning skills. I am not necessarily a person who weighs on pessimism. I genuinely hope that the ones that I've come past, like encountered through these 2.5 years, they begin to mature and or not necessarily mature. Mature is actually opposite. Couldn't sleep, so you checked. Oh yeah, what'd you learn, Mark? What'd you learn about the rabbit hole? Hair and fur. Oh, fashionable. Oh no. Oh no. Alright, anyways. Done with the hair thing. Oh no. Well, that is definitely something I need to consider. Hair and fur. Temperature like this was recorded only 3 times since 1779, and it's June. All right. And it's going to be a couple days in a row. Okay, like this. No new info on the rabbit hole front. Oh, I see. So, given what I mentioned about human standards, then on these days, it will feel like the climate change is a great talking topic. And then when it's outside of these days, the layman will probably, the people who are not viewing their life as historical recordings of absolute temperature, will probably go back to thinking that climate change is fairly normalized. Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? It's humans are fascinating creatures. Quick to forget, quick to exaggerate. And then the averaging effect creates modest attention. Just sell more ACs and ice cream, etc. Exactly. Indeed. And for me, my perceptions are slightly warped because I go out every single day. So that's a thing, right? I run every single day. So I still feel this. So I'm not saying that I'm not the same as everyone else. I'm pretty much very still similar to everyone else. Like when I run, even despite going out, I literally run every single day outside, rain, snow, thunderstorm, every single day. And I still have this human condition of normalizing the temperature. Like, despite the average temperature going up where I live as well, I still do this. So it's one of those things like, as much as I want to say somehow humans can become enlightened to normalize behavior, I can't deny my humanity. Like, when it's really hot on any particular day, it'll feel like I think about climate change all the time. And then suddenly, when you have a stretch of cool days, you start thinking maybe climate change isn't real, right? Like exceptionally cool days, where there's exceptionally hot days, there might be outliers in cool days. However, then when I go into the task of discussing climate change, I can normalize it with the objective nature of looking at the average temperature across the board. So our objectivity and subjectivity is in flux all the time, and that interest wanes and comes and goes because it's temporally normalized, while looking at statistics helps us inform ourselves of things that our feelings and subjectivity can't account for. Now the question is, how do we make that connection? Largely because oftentimes emotionally aligned objective things, right? Subjectively aligned objective tasks are far more compelling for a general audience than something specialized. But when it's unusually cold, rainy, etc., wouldn't you think about climate change anyways? No, I'm saying that's what you think about. And then when they stop, you don't. There are more times that you stop because of its consistency than its irregularity. Humans take notice acutely to unusual circumstances. However, if those are habitually overwritten by consistent circumstances, which is the paradox, right? When you're thinking about unusual things, they are rarer. And then the normal things are what overrides the perception of abnormal things. Like, in order for someone to be happy, like for example, in order if someone is normally really happy, depression doesn't get in the way. And then you might be arguing, well, depression is a rare thing, right? And yet people keep thinking about it. It's like, no, for people who are depressed, the rare thing is being depressed for people who are happy. And then people who are depressed, depression is the regular thing. It's the thing that occurs all the time. That's what makes it chronic, right? You can have, happy people can have acute depression. I have acute depression from time to time, where like I could be very depressed at a scene and it would weigh on me for a month. But if my habit is to be happy, it gets overwritten, and it can trivialize the impact of those depressions. So that's what I think about the human paradox, right? And like you don't have to feel sorry for me, because what I described is normal. So like if we're going to talk about statistical averages now, like now we talk about the climate change situation where you're talking about statistical averages. The normal human, the statistical human, will go through acute stages of depression because of life. Life has acute challenges that create depression. That is a healthy response to challenge how happy you are when you can consistently cope and rectify or normalize that depression. Like, for example, the period of loss. That is a biological human condition. You will lose people in your life because they will die at some point. You will get sick. So, yeah, it's still okay to feel sorry when someone is depressed within the normal range. Yeah, it is. And it's also very normal for someone who is happy to say, you don't have to feel sorry for me because it's perfectly normal. Right? So, paradox. These things are paradoxical. You'll go through them in cycles. Now, what is not normal is when it is not like when we argue about normality, right? What is not normal or unusual, we would use objectivity, right? The objectivity side of things is destroy me with facts and logic. Yeah, so the objectivity side of things helps us normalize our subjectivity. Our subjectivity is fickle, it's circumstantial and whatnot, which is, I think that's what I like about humans. For the record, I long since embraced the fickleness of humans in both good and bad. Objectivity does help us ground all of it. Like, I already talked about it earlier about calorie tracking. Like, how much calories do you think you're consuming? Well, if you just eaten, you probably feel like you consume a lot more calories than you haven't eaten. If you're starving, you're probably going to think you have lower calories. And it is the objective nature of recording that will tell you, despite your cognitive dissonance sometimes. And I do this to like, I test myself all the time. Like, I'm genuinely believe in this status because I no matter how long, for example, running, I'll use running. One day I'm like, all right, I feel good, I'm running, I'm pushing myself, and it turns out my time was the same. Like, the same as yesterday. But yesterday I felt kind of miserable, allergies were in play, and I was like running, and somehow the two times are the same. So regardless of how long I have trained, bouts of emotional highs and lows can still change your perspective despite what the data says. The data simply will say what it states, which is great to have both. Let's see what you said. Well, when it's usually raining, doesn't change much that the share of days that make you wonder if something usual would be bigger. Doesn't change much, but the share of days that make you wonder if something usual would be bigger, unusual would be bigger. Yeah, the regular irregularity situation. It's interesting. Kind of sleep is a great example. When someone is momentarily rested, they would be immediately convinced that their sleep hygiene is not a problem. Despite later down the road, they're going to have a string of days that remind them that their sleep hygiene is not sustainable. Every occasional sleep day, like that they're rested, and momentarily counteract practically years of consistently poor sleep hygiene. Like, that is the power of human subjectivity. Like, you can have and I'm using an anecdotal example from 3 or 4 people combined. Like, when someone can tolerate poor sleep hygiene, the habits of coping with poor sleep hygiene for like a month, So it only takes one good day in that month to tell that person I don't have a problem. Like, it's not my sleep. My sleep is not a problem because they had one good day, and then they have to relive the whole month, which they built a tolerance for, like the whole month of tolerance. Like, oh, I have all these coping mechanisms and all these. So there's no incentive to improve, mitigate, or change your existing sleep tolerance because it only takes 1 month, one day in that month to retain that habit. So here's the thing, right? So now we have irregularities within regularities. So you have a regular deficiency of 29 days of sleep deprivation, and you have one regularly occurring irregularity of good sleep regulation. Then that pattern repeats on a regular basis. So you have regular occurrence of regularity and an irregularity that became regular. And that, to me, is what describes the human hygiene problem. Like, hygiene as in not like cleanliness, the different types of hygiene. Sleep hygiene, diet, learning, studying habits, dopamine compensation, doom scrolling. You need... The tolerance is how long can you tolerate something? And then what is the perpetual reset? Because for me, when someone says, oh yeah, the digression I had just now was someone spent like pretty much their entire life learning English. And they've been doing the same thing, right? They've been doing the same thing for a while. And recently, they did something new in a new context, but they applied the same strategy. And then it didn't work. So then they asked me for input, and then they said, okay, I need to learn this strategy. So they reapplied the same strategy. And they're like, I think it's working. It's working better. And my first thought is, it sounds like you're doing the same thing. The odds are you think it's working because you stopped doing the thing that didn't work. Think about it for a moment. Like, this person, it only took them to quit doing the same thing that they spent 4 months realizing that doesn't work. And they decided to tell me, okay, so we quit for 2 months. Now I'm going to try this again. And they're doing the same exact thing, only double the amount. And they're saying, oh, I think it's working this time. I'm like, it's probably not working, but you think it's working because it's new again. Like, you're starting off again. That's kind of like someone saying, for example, working out, right? Someone feels sluggish, so they go work out, right? They haven't worked out in 3 months, like forever. They work out that one thing, it's like, oh yeah, I feel really good. And then when's the next time they're going to work out? Usually it's not the next day or the day after next. It's probably another 3 months from now. Or like they haven't worked out for 2 weeks and they're like, they got into the gym and like, oh, it feels good. And then when is the next time they're likely going to go to the gym again? 2 weeks from now. Because that's the maximum tolerance of their habit before they feel bad enough to go to the gym again. Now, how do you break the cycle? Objectivity. That's why we record things. We record things to offset our really strong, at least in my opinion, human compulsions. Like, and that's where the consistency game comes in. It's like you have to go to the gym because your data, the things you recorded, is telling you need to go to the gym. Like, otherwise, doing on feeling alone, it's a recipe for subjectivity. Motion to never make a World Cup outside UTC+1. So we're time. Let all African nations host it in turn, or the next 50 years if necessary. Oh, I see what you did there. Where is the World Cup right now? I don't remember where the World Cup is being held. Wait, is it held in one location? Oh, it's being held in the US. Is it? I have no idea. The US, okay, okay. So, is it always held in one location or does it move around? I don't remember if the World Cup moves around. Like, what I mean is not between World Cups. I mean, within a World Cup. Does it move around or it doesn't move around? Like, they choose a location and they stay there? I did not take into account whether if like the final stage moves in a location or not. Like when they go from it moves? Oh, okay, okay. Is it like group stages, then the single elimination are in different places? If it was always in the US, biggest dystopia of them all. Well, uh I think that's a very tangential point. However, do you mean it moves with are you saying it moves within a World Cup or it moves between World Cups? Because I know it moves between World Cups. I'm not sure if it moves within World Cups. Like for example, like Rio was one of the World Cups. I don't know if it moves around Rio, like around Brazil. That's what I'm talking about. Like we're talking about reference here. I mean, you made a comment about biggest dystopia. That's a different story. I think that's a projection of your subjectivity there, because of your convenience and whatnot, and maybe your geopolitical views. But my thought was about the objective nature of being in the same location. If many countries host it, then it moves. Canada and Mexico co-host now for group stages and early playoffs before 1/4, if you're correct. Oh, wow. Interesting. It's far more complicated. No, it's objective true. Source, believe me, bro. Okay, okay. May I ask, how are you, like, what is your daily activity given your sleep schedule? Like, how do you maintain your daily activity at the moment, given your sleep schedule? Or do you have any obligations? Got a ladle full of. Oh no. Wrong tone. Wait for chief. Alright. That's okay. Is it? Huh. Yeah. That's the temple thing. Is it already mixed with S? It is. Did I change the bottom? I don't know if I changed the bottom. For dynasty. Oh, dynasty. That's where I got the chow from. Bathroom. Your girlfriend went to visit her parents, so you're jobless, but not well cupless till the internship starts. I see. So you mostly tutor kids, grind your own math, and then hop on the stream. Oh, okay, okay. Tutoring. Nice. For myself, obviously, I already voluntarily that I am unemployed. I am voluntarily unemployed, so no, there's no excuse for like a disability or anything like that, right? I don't have any disabilities or anything keeping me from being voluntarily uh working. However, I do spend most of my evenings conversing and doing personal enrichments outside of whatever this whatever this may appear to be. You gotta love some precarity in your 20s. I see. You have to coin a word for my situation. I call it a voluntary sabbatical. An extended voluntary sabbatical. uh, if I'm not talking to an academic person, I would say voluntary unemployment. You know, voluntary unemployment. And usually then someone would ask me, so then how do you make a living? And my response is typically, I have enough for now. And then someone would say like, well, can you do this for the rest of my life? I'm like, no, I wouldn't do anything the same for the rest of my life. So the answer is no. It's a moot point. However, they're usually implying, so can you like not work for the rest of your life, because not working is great to them, right? Because they don't want to work. And my first thought is, no, the first thing I would say is I want to work. I want to find something that will drive me to work. I'm working now, and most people would tell me, wow, what you're doing is boring. It takes so much effort and like it's a grind. And I'm like, well, that work is like that too, and I enjoy that too. So oftentimes when someone says, well, what do you do for work? And I'm like, I don't work right now. And they're like, oh, so you don't do anything hard. And I'm like, that's not the impression that I get whenever someone asks me what I do on a daily basis. You mean like spending 7 or 8 hours of my time listening to people's problems and trying to be a helpful, like non-responsible, non-professional help? You think that's hard or easy work? Yeah, I obviously just work hard with or without compensation, right? Like I tell people, some people who like dabble, like they're freelancers. I would use the phrase freelancer too. Or if I occasionally encounter like a lawyer or someone who's in policy, I would say I do pro bono work. Everything is largely, um, yeah, like free HanziHero. Yeah, the thing, pro boom. My goal is anytime I don't have to work, then I kind of want to do work for others. Like that's what I enjoy. Now, some people would say, well, then why don't you do work for me? It's like, well, that depends. Do you want to do better for yourself? Like, because when I was younger, I had a problem. I was a yes man. I said yes to everyone. And that's why, like, you already, like, earlier I mentioned burnout, like, when you asked about certain things, like I got burnout, what took me away from research. Um, it's very rooted in my early life. I say yes to everything. So when I was younger, I could maintain that, right? I could say yes to things because I have less responsibilities. As I grew older, I got more and more responsibilities. So I had to learn to choose, learn to regulate, not saying yes to everyone. It didn't stop me from burning out. So I did burn out. In fact, I like, it's addictive. It's very addicting to say yes and do something, and someone's like, good job, and then we just keep doing more. So at some point that was no longer sustainable. So nowadays, like a people pleasing, you probably heard this symptom before. The person who has here's a perfect storm. If you have imposter syndrome, or you combat imposter syndrome, and you are a people pleaser, that when you combine those two, it's a recipe for non-sustainable, nearly easily targetable, abuse of someone like that. You can abuse someone that immediately. Luckily for me, though, I don't have a sob story for this. I do not feel like I was abused by anyone. I actually say the opposite. I think my life was lucky enough. Like, I was very statistically unlikely to have been as successful as I could have been now in retrospect, because it was very easy for someone like me to end up in an abusive, low compensatory, very ragged state. I've talked about the psychology of being nice and kind, the difference between kindness and niceness. I was in the latter category. I was a nice person, not specifically a kind person. So a nice person habitually and self-obligatorily want to please other people unconditionally. Nice people finish last. Like that idiom that you might hear every once in a while. Nice people generally statistically finish last, because in a world in which kindness is the balance between being nice and being selfish, that is the human condition. You have to be kind. You are selective in when you want to help someone. People who can possibly help you, and people who you have time to help others. When you are classically nice, the odds are against you, because you're never going to ask for something back. That means that you don't get a sustainable source back. So when I was younger, I was a nice person. When someone asked, I would say yes. And that was sustainable because I was a kid and I try to fit in as best as I can. So it's always yes, yes, yes. Everything is yes. Now, when I became an adult, I said yes too much. Like, it was way too much. And whenever someone asked, I would say yes. Like, okay, that's okay. I'll make time for that and time for that. So then I ran out of time for myself. Like, we're not talking about like having hobbies. I didn't have a hobby. My job was my hobby. Like, my job was the hobby. When someone asks, oh, do you ever go on vacation? No, I spent the summer in the lab. Like, then what do you do in the lab? I collect data. Like, but then what do you do when you're not collecting data? I collect data. Like, so what do you talk about when you're home? I talk about work. That's what I talk about. And then someone asks, like, didn't you like have a significant other or something? No, I'm single. Like, I've been a single person my entire life. Like, when someone said, well, didn't you have friends that liked it? Yes, I did. And the first thing they would find out over time is that I do work and I'm nice to them. Like, I try to be nice to everyone around me, but that doesn't mean it leads to intimacy or any form of close attachment, because I simply do what people say. So that doesn't create intimacy. Being nice also doesn't create intimacy. There's no selfishness involved. A kind person creates intimacy. So like, you love the person you fall in love with. You are kind to them. You are not indiscriminately nice around, because it's favoritism that creates intimacy with someone. So that's something that I've been working on for some time now. Like, maybe when I burned out, in my 30s, that's when I started working on trying to cultivate some form of kindness, because you have to favor people in order to create longer relationships. Yeah, so anyways, base, you obviously, I try to work hard, right? And it is others that determine if I work hard or not. I still do that thing. Like, I don't really tell people I work hard. That's something I don't talk about too much. I tell people what I do, and then I let them decide if I work hard or not, which obviously I take that as a compliment. It's very flattering that you think it's obvious that I work hard. When I'm using Duolingo, most people think I'm not working hard. So subjectivity is very fickle, right? Um, peace maxing and peace. Or you mix up nice and kind. Yeah, when someone is a good person, right? Like when someone is a good person, they are kind. When someone is a nice person, they are neither kind, they're neither good or bad because they don't care. Like in my opinion, I don't care if I'm good or bad. I simply support the person who's requesting something from me. So like when someone asks me, right, this is, you get that worker bee situation. If someone asks me, hey, how do I make my app more addictive? It's like, I got you, bro. That's a nice person, right? Kindness talks takes into account, okay, so what is it in it for them? And if we create this addictive app, are we helping more people than harming more people, right? So there, to me, that's what I mean by morality, right? Like, I didn't really consider, I help people do what they do. Now here's the thing, I say this a lot. When I was nicer, like when I was a nicer person, I didn't care if I was enabling someone. Like, if someone said, like, hey, can you help me get to the liquor store, right? Can you help me get to the liquor store to get, to get something to drink? A kind person would take into consideration, like, wait, hold up. Why are you going to the liquor store? Like, uh, should I be worried that should I be worried how much you drink? Like, you're selectively being concerned about them. Niceness would be like, oh yeah, sure, I'll do it, yeah, sure. And then you do it and you're like, good job. And then you move on your way. You're not, and then you move on to your next task, the next task that someone wants you to do. That's kind of like the go-to guy, right? Like, the, if you're working in like an IT, and it's like, oh hey, just go ask this guy, he'll always say yes, he'll always do it. So he never asks why you want them to do it. It's just, they'll get it done. That's usually the my place in most of the stuff. The goodness, the great thing about my life, at least, I'm gonna humble brag a little, like a weird flex. The people around my life, I was lucky enough to have kind people around my life. So I didn't end up like homeless, for example. This, I know this sounds like a really morbid topic, but I genuinely need to raise awareness. Nice people end up homeless. Like, you can have well-educated, nice people who, like, barely make any money, don't have a house, no one really cares about them because they don't have any use for them anymore. They're discarded. That's that's usually like what I mean by, you can have too much of something. Well, a person can be too nice and a person can be too kind. There's like too much of a lot of things in human life. And those are the fringe cases that I want others to understand. It's a balance. Life is definitely a balance, especially when trying to adjust to your subjectivity in life. I can't tell you how often I hear a nice person. Here's an example of a nice person, and they don't have to be intellectuals or anything like that. This person is, like, this particular person is locked in an abusive relationship. Like, I'm generalizing, so it might sound like they're locked in an abusive relationship, but they can't leave the relationship because they believe their partner needs them. That's what niceness looks like. So, like, a nice person can entrap themselves in a situation in which they can convince themselves that their misery is their motivation to continue. So that happens a lot. It does happen a lot. Like, and you can argue who's at fault. Well, if you're on the outside and you're a kind person, you would immediately think that it's the abuser that's taking advantage of a nice person, right? That is what it would look like from the outside if you have a shred of kindness. Now, if you're a nice person, like heavily nice, you would be like, oh, that person is just doing their best trying to help someone. Yeah, but that person is abusing them. So I've come to like think of it that way. Obviously, the thing is to know both and try to encourage problem solving solutions both directions. Kindness has a preference. You try to save the suffering person, not the one that's taking advantage. Niceness is blind. Like, that's one of the things that I would say when I'm streaming. I'm a nice person. When I'm not streaming, I'm practicing kindness. Just to clarify why my motivations on explaining the difference between kindness and niceness is when I'm streaming, I'm nice. Like, I want to be nice. That's the whole point. So I don't want to give people the impression that I'm always nice. When I'm not streaming, I'm being kind. I selectively engage with certain people who demand my attention that I feel like I can make a natural impact on, and I take care of myself. I'm being kind to myself. So that whole like self-love, I think of it more like self-kindness. Don't forget to take care of yourself. If you can't be kind to yourself, the chances are you would probably fail in being kind to others. If you're nice to yourself and being nice to others, that's not sustainable. Like, because eventually you'll put other people ahead of yourself. And if you do that constitutively, then you're going to run yourself ragged. When you're young, maybe like in your 20s, you can still do that for a while. I mean, I went pretty hard. Like, I was pretty good until like when I was 27 or 28. So if you want to go that track, sure, you can learn from the literal aspect of being nice. The reason why I'm not trying to damper other people who maybe their life is to be a nice person. Like, everyone thinks that they're a nice person. Nice people know that they're nice people because everyone keeps telling them that they're a nice person. And even though the reality is when they say you're a really nice person, they're not being kind to you. Because you won't be surrounding people who favor you. You'll be largely more likely to be surrounded by people who have use for you. Because in the long run, you don't nice people tend not to impose an impression on other people. Like, you're forgettable. It sounds like a really wicked way of looking at it. Think about it though. The people who are nice, do you remember them? Or do you remember the kind people in your life? The people who favor you? Generally speaking, the people who favor you stay around longer. They leave a longer impression, and you tend to leave a longer impression on them. You do empathize? Yeah. So that's kind of what my first 20 years of life was like. Like, we fit in, be polite, be non-memorable, don't stick out. And some might be like, why would parents ever teach you that? That's part of the Chinese culture. What do you think happened? Like, if you think about Japanese and Chinese culture, like by extension, what do you do in the first 20 or so years of your life? You be as polite as possible, fit in as well as possible, work really hard, and you hope that your merits one day carry you. Well, if you grew up in a country that doesn't have that particular culture set, then you get buried in stuff. So you adjust. Like my parents adjust, obviously, and I adjust. It took me a while. After leaving the house, right, leaving the nest is when I started adjusting. Pretty interesting. Now, here's the kicker, though. Here's the kicker. Why do I choose to be nice on stream? Because I can now. Not because I have to. That is the game changer. The game changer is I place myself in a position that I can be nice. I'm not gonna like keel over from being objectively people pleasing. Here's one other kicker. Now think about kids nowadays and their first foray into content creation. I would tell you at least more than 50% of those kids who go into content creation is going to burn out from their first venture. They may decide to come back after the burnout and make it as a content creator, or they simply remove themselves from that venture and go elsewhere. That is the new paradigm for when kids learn what is kindness and what is niceness. Because most of the majority of the people that burn out is because they're trying to be nice. What does niceness look like as content creation? They constantly put out content that only serves the populace. Whenever the populace is upset, they would go and bend over backwards to sell themselves out as vigorously as possible to get as many happy thumbs ups as possible. That is not sustainable. So you can learn the contrast between kindness and niceness in different paradigms. For myself, the internet didn't exist. So when someone says, well, maybe you're just different, you're built different, if I was born in this era, if I was Gen Z, I'm human, so I would likely encounter a very similar situation. I would start a content creation, maybe I would talk about science or something, and I would run myself ragged because all I can think about is concern myself with people pleasing. Please everyone. Make sure that when someone says, oh, my content's not accurate, okay, I'm gonna go back. And then it's like, hey, can you make more content? Yes, I can make more content. And then you burn out the first time. That's what happens when you're a nice person. I won't burn out in content creation this time because I'm almost 40 years old and I have already learned the consequences of being an excessive people pleaser. So that's where we get into that huge digression about when is it too young to be exposed to content creation. Well, if you're concerned about your child committing their entire life and framing it around trying to get people to like them, then that might be a concern that you might want to levy to your child or understand, because the early forms of child niceness is to be a chronic people pleaser. It's not something unique to me. It's unique. You could argue it's unique to humans per se, but if you're human, the system that's in place for the internet is to procure and abuse niceness, not kindness. The kindness is a lesson learned most of the time from the initial niceness. So you're gonna hear this over and over again. It's not framed in this context. Usually it's more framed in the lack of self-esteem, chronic depression, the lack of self-worth. I think oftentimes they go hand in hand. It's a column A, column B situation. The low self-esteem can also promote the chronic necessity for being nice, because you want to be nice to your audience, right? The first evidence of kindness can trigger someone to seek it through niceness. So it's a running narrative that I've been using to try to talk about my early childhood, my teenage years, that can be empathetic to Gen Z now. Like, if you're sitting online and you post your first video, and the first thing you sit there is you're waiting for someone to tell you how you can make your video better. Niceness. That's what you're focusing on. You're focusing on how can you better please others. A stable person would do both. They would project what they think is important while considering how to frame other people's interest within the scope of your own kindness. You are promoting a kindness while also trying to elevate a sufficient level of niceness to other people. Right? So you're taking other people's feedback into consideration without sacrificing your own identity. When you're a young kid, you can't develop that yet. Like, it's unlikely that you have developed that yet. When you're like as old as me, I suppose, and went through like the usual thing from a different context, then I'm unlikely to burn out. So that is the idea. Like, oh yeah, so why aren't you burning out of Wanikani? Well, first you might want to ask, why am I not burning out of streaming? Like, if you think that doing Wanikani for a year and a half without any compensation or like fanfare, I've been streaming for 7 years without that. I've been in education for more than 10 years without that. So the context really deserves a bit of framework, right? Like, it is sustainable to me because I've learned how to make it sustainable. That's not to say that the internet can't convince you what you're doing is right and then you just keep repeating the same mistake. That's kind of a rough spot. I do genuinely feel like sympathize, not quite empathize, but sympathize with those people who are stuck in a like they're stuck in a loop, like a cycle. I haven't felt like I've been stuck in a cycle for some time now. If there's a problem, we run towards it and we adjust to it. Those who are stuck in a cycle tend to see a problem and find a tolerance for it. So like, you continue to build a new tolerance, which goes back to the whole climate change thing. If someone's treating you like crap and they continue to treat you like crap on a regularity, you might normalize that tolerance. So instead of relying on proactive decisions to mitigate or like change that situation, you develop a coping mechanism, and that coping mechanism begins to maintain the new level of abuse, which then the abuse can escalate slowly. So the idea is, how do you take advantage of youth? You take advantage of them in a progressive manner that they don't realize that their tolerance is going up and up. And I'm not saying that companies did this intentionally, maliciously. It might be a coincidence of business practices. Like, how do you make money go up? Well, gradually go up, right? Like, when you normalize $70 video games, then you can try for $80. And then when you normalize $80, you can try for $90. Business practices have pragmatic foundations in being effective because they take unintentionally, like, we're not talking about all businessmen are like psychologists or like philosophers and whatnot. They can be pragmatic. Pragmatism can lead to very similar foundational understanding of the human condition through practice, right? That business is practical. It is dealing with the pragmatic side of things. So how do you keep people on your platform? Abuse habit formation. Did they deliberately go out of their way to say, oh yeah, we understand the nature of habit formation, so this is why we designed our product deliberately? They could have discovered it simply through trial, error, refinement, And that's what business practice, like, let's do a bunch of things that make money go up. Although we can argue for the counter nowadays because of data, right? Data driven business is creating a accelerated, arguably potentially conscious point of negligence. You can make a moral and ethical argument now due to the accessibility of data. So no longer is that benefit of the doubt, in my opinion, is very attractive anymore. So the narrative of my narrative has changed as the paradigm has changed. The availability of tracking data has circumvented my narrative of giving free goodwill to the idea that it's simply pragmatism that is driving a unforeseen consequence of abuse that could be perceived as predatorial. With all that data now, the benefit of the doubt is left weakened consistently over time, because with data there is an opportunity for conscious decision making, and that conscious decision making comes with responsibilities and liabilities. And now we're back to the whole AI discussion once again. Like, if you have all the data, if you want all the data, you get all the responsibilities too. I think that's one of the talking topics that must be consistently evaluated. If someone is given privilege to information, they must also, in my opinion, fairly also take into account a proportional amount of its accountability. So I feel like that's fairly reasonable. If you want my data, right? If I am freely going to give you my data, I hope you understand that you are also going to assume a proportional, ethical, and morally obligation of proportional accountability for having the data. That's called trust. That's the trust system. Niceness. Now we go back to niceness and kindness. I am giving my data out of kindness, not niceness. If you're giving your data out of niceness, you're not expecting a proportional responsibility of the other person to handle your data with kindness. You're typically hoping that they're just going to be nice to you blanketly, which honestly, that doesn't happen most often, like, especially in a business practice. How do you think businesses make money? It's not out of niceness, it's out of kindness, right? Kindness is a balance of weighing one's own interest, money, and trying to be sufficiently nice so that, or proportionally kind to their audience. So, like, that's kind of one of those things, like, hey, our video game is being kind to people who like our video game. It's not trying to be nice to everyone else. Like, if you don't like our video game, tough luck. Anyways, all right. That's enough of the niceness topic. I do like talking about kindness and niceness. I think I've seen my fair share of nice people. And oftentimes, those nice people do talk about how nice they are, or they talk about what they do that is nice. And it kind of is heartbreaking, at least in my opinion, to tell them potentially, or like to maybe even infer or insinuate that it's probably the niceness that is creating, like, that is potentially contributing to their current situation. Sometimes saying no is an act of kindness to yourself. Saying no is not an act of niceness to yourself. You're not being nice to yourself when you say no, because usually nice people don't want to say no. It makes them feel bad. A nice person feels bad when they say no. I would it cuts really deep when I said that, because I don't like saying no to people. I rarely said no to people when I was younger. I'm now I kind of do it in a very particular way. I only say yes when I make myself available. So I'm nice when I can say yes. That's the nice thing about streaming and the nice thing about internet, right? You can choose when to be nice. So I make myself available when I can be nice. I know when to say no when I have to be kind. Because sometimes you have to tell people, no, you can't do this. It's unreasonable to me. That might be a shared kindness. Because if you don't know where to draw your boundaries, then that could lead to other problems too. Like, hey, I don't, I want you to do this. And then one day that nice person can just break down. And then the other person was like, oh, I didn't know that you didn't really like to do this. You never told me you didn't want to do this. I just thought that it was okay to get you to do this all the time. So it can lead to misunderstandings too. The other person doesn't have to be abuser, right? Like, it can simply be someone who don't understand you. And you hear that a lot in Japanese culture and potentially Chinese culture, where someone simply says yes and they keep going yes, and then their life is miserable, but they never show it. They never tell you like, hey, I'm really, really tired. And then one day they just like collapses from like exhaustion, and only to realize to the person that's with them like, I didn't realize how hard they were pushing themselves. That's kind of the somewhat extreme case, but I think it occurs far more commonly in like Asian cultures where you're built for niceness. So at some point you just don't know ever to know how to be kind to yourself. So you never ask for help. That's a great example. You never ask for help. And this is a different never ask for help. For me, I lived around the Western culture where never asking for help is a egotistical thing. It's a narcissistic thing where like you don't ask for help because you think you're better than someone else, right? You're confident that you know better than the other person. There's also a form of niceness that don't ask for help either. Like never showing weakness because you're the reliable person. So that is the one that I empathize with very, very well, where I never want to show someone that I'm weak because I feel like I have something to offer to them. Not the other way around where I don't want to show a level of weakness because it might embarrass my ego. That's a very different story. Growing up in the United States under a Chinese household shown me both of those sides, where the side where you never show weakness because it is the earnest, nice thing to do. My parents, like for example, when my parents operate their Chinese restaurant, it doesn't like a customer can come in and swear at them and tell them to go back to their country and stuff. My parents would smile and it's like, well, thank you for your, thank you for your patronage. I hope you find something else. That's niceness. That's the public, polite thing, regardless in the face of adversity. You are nice regardless of how people treat you. You try to treat them the best you can because it's either your job or what you're ingrained to. Alternatively, I grew up in the United States, so you could go into a family shop and someone is like being belligerent and the people are like, please, all our customers, you're worrying all our customers. Can you get out, please? This is my place of employment. Please leave as kindly as possible so that you may, not bother all of our other customers. That's kindness. You are prioritizing the whole versus the one. You're not trying to please everyone. Those are like the very specific examples that would say the contrast between someone who's trying to be nice, so they hope that they can please everyone in their businesses or in their content creation and stuff, versus being kind, so you're being kind to the people who are kind to you. And then the ones that aren't, you have to pick your battles. So when I was younger, like if a bully, for example, told me to jump, I would jump, thinking that being nice would typically solve the problem. That's not usually the case. Being kind can help solve the problem. Being nice, in my opinion, tends to actually enable the other person because you have no input. Like, here's one. Being kind, this sounds really cliche and cheesy, but telling someone you have a problem with how they're acting in order to come to a better solution or a more like reasonable compromise, that's kind. You're creating an act of kindness. Being nice is you tell the person you don't have a problem despite having a problem. That I was the latter. I was typically the latter. When something bothers me, you wouldn't know it bothers me. I would continue to enable whatever is happening. So I would learn to love it. I would learn to like the thing, even though initially I don't like it. That's what this has taught me. So I'm not saying niceness hasn't taught me any lessons that are useful. I have skills where I can learn to like something even though I initially dislike it. A niceness can teach you that. It can teach you how to learn to love something about someone despite not liking it in the first place. Like, you can see the good in things that are inherently not good at first. Like grinding long hours of HanziHero. Those like strategies can come into play. Like, how do you learn to like something if you don't like it based on your initial impressions? Niceness goes a long way. Niceness gives you tolerance, discipline, consistency, right? Coping mechanisms. Kindness tells you how to be opportunistic, prioritize, get efficient, right? Like, learn what is a better win than just taking things in face value. So both happens anyways. Now I'm really on a digression. All right. Let's get back to this. Fire. Is it Jing? Okay. Or cinders. You know what? I could use the cinder vocabulary. Do we have anything? Cinder and ashes. Okay. And it ends up being ash? I don't know if I like that one. Yu Qing or ember. Surplus cinder. Ember? That's okay. Wu Jing, bones and ashes. Oh, so this has an ash quality to it already. Interesting. Oh, because cinder. I see. We'll use this one.
Mao.
Alright. So it's a pivot. What? Oh, wait. I missed the I. And this was 2, not 3.
Hui.
The other chief. How do we screw this up? I didn't look at the gun. Oh, wait. Fine.
Go.
Oh, it's not recording. It's carelessness. I wonder if we can get a carelessness for Hu Gao Chun. We drift through life. 和 illicit sexual relations. Yikes. 沟通 to agree blindly. Reckless agreement. Okay, I see. Or careless agreements. 苟活 to live without dignity. Let's go with to drift through life. Carelessly live. That's actually really good. Carelessly exist. Okay. What the? Is this cool? Heck. It's cool. Alright, so it's a flex. It's kind of like the other wither. Do we have both withers together? Yep. Kuwei. Kuwei are the two that break. Okay. That's a 50-50.
愁
Heck! This is a 50-50 too. It's silk versus category. Which one was category? Category is probably tree. Oh, it's a different cho. What is a category cho? Oh. Wait. No, it's not. Chip. Wait, is this cho? Yeah, this is cho. It's using beard. Okay. So the lap one is silk regardless. Okay. I mean, there is silk here. Okay. Fair enough.
言静
Japanese reinforcement there.
飘
Okay.
凶
Or turbulent. Torrential or turbulent. Torrential is adjacent. Okay. We're gonna go with heck. It's probably Hui, yeah, or emblem. Okay. So Zheng expedition. Wait. Hold up. It's the mountain group. So let's go. So Wei. This would be, we're combining that to be the pedestal, right? And then we have Zheng, and then Zhe. No, Zhi. So we have Zhi for throw and hurl, or like to hurl. And then Zheng, which is the crown. Like, I think we're using thread. Thread for solicit. Then there's Zhe or hurl. Where are you? So the emblem is the silk. We have to think about a silk emblem. There's also punish, but punish has heart. I mean, where's hurl at? Is hurl not? And then there's abdominal tumor as well. Abdominal tumor. I don't remember what hurl is. Oh. Hurl is off the chieftain. Okay. So silk. Silk.
智
Obstruct. Or suffocate, yeah. Do I have suffocate here? No, I don't. We're gonna write suffocate because of Japanese.
灭
Japanese as well. Recently. I don't think it means the same thing. Oh, yeah, it does. Oh, no, disdain. Disdain. What? Oh, that's Ting. I can't spell turbulent. Disdain.
温
What? Oh, probably epidemic.
静
Alternative. Miss the
妙
eye. That one's special. Some part of me want to type huh, but some part of me want to also type why doesn't make any sense, does it? Ah, it's huh. Okay, for O. I imagine if this is gonna be exclamatory, right? Nope. It's just straight up exclamatory. Alright. I mean, like, there's nothing else in exclamatory. Eh? Joe. Oh no. Joe needs help. And Joe. So I took the principal character, which is Chun. Chun and Chun. Is this the only body part? Elbow, okay. Oh, the moon. Oh, is this the, like, inch mooncake thing? Elbow grease, too. Where's that inch? Yeah. Alright. That's either I know or I don't. Just gonna go with it.
喝
That's an exclamatory. Just do what exclamatory do. Ooh. Uh.
真
There's like excessive pouring of wine, so it's like, yeah, excessive pouring of. Wait, I think wine pouring is gonna come up with 真纯 真浊. Oh, yes. Oh. Wait. Oh no, wait, it is 浊. What am I talking about? 真酒 is another one. No, I'm thinking of 浊, which is, I thought this was 纯. Oh, 纯 is mellow wine. 浊 is the other one. Yeah, this is the one that we got from to consider, yeah. 斟酌 is like to deliberate or make, what was it? To make allowances or to fill up a cup. I think to pour alcohol is kind of okay. But it's also to take into considerations or make allowances is the Japanese I'm thinking of. Uh,
马
ant. Yeah. Should have went with my gut here. This
骑
is like, what is it? Like land, headland or something? Like dirt land or headland? Yeah, I don't know. It's a feature, geographical feature. What in the? I think this is. Oh no, it's the amber thing.
马
Is it amber? No, it's what is the ore thing in agate? Okay. And then we have to think about silk. Silk is the
灰
giveaway.
沸
Uh uh
介
what type of sickness is this? It's not spasms, scabies. Gun? Oh no, that's Japanese.
炫
It's like oh, it's not showy. Probably oh no, yeah, it is showy or show off. It's fine. It's okay. Ooh, maybe there's a boisterous. Can I get boisterous? 炫富. To flaunt wealth. That's okay. Ostentatious. Yeah. Ooh, ostentatious. Great word. 炫弄. Ooh, nung is weak, but nung is like to play, to show off, to flaunt. Interesting. I could use nung. Nung is a weak one, and to show off, like to show off and be playful about it, to flaunt. I like this. Let's go with this one. Nung is a weak character. Not much use. Ah, that's pa.
蒲
That's simple or plain.
肘
This one is not great.
灵
Gemstone or no, exquisite. Oh no, it's gemstone. Wait, no, it is exquisite. I just spelled it so poorly that
哈
that's flowers, not bud. Okay. I spelled it so poorly. It's unacceptable.
停
I think this is dragonfly. Okay. What? Eh? Daybreak. Alright. We squeeze in a few more. Alright, we're gonna skip our active recall today and go straight into Dave the Diver. Right. We did a bit of I got some of my digressions in. One day, guys. One day, unironically, AI is gonna come to my rescue on some of this. I have some social experiments that I already like kind of gave away here and there in the Discord and whatnot. It'll be interesting to see how it develops in the future. Anyways, that's a wrap. Let's see if this still shows. Oh, it looks like it extends well beyond. So while the word category, it does a dot dot dot, the dictionary category just keeps going. Like, so this can work. I simply have to zoom in. What is control? Is it control? Yeah, so we can do it this way. Like, try to zoom in, right? And then do it that way in the future. That's my jerry rig. So this list is going to continue to expand, and it is going to highlight as many curated weak characters and paired with. So my goal right now mechanically is pairing a weak character with an foundational character that is lower in use. So if both of them are weak, I would prioritize both the weak characters. So my goal is that this dictionary list represents a substantial amount of combination of how to get a weak character to be stronger with something. And ideally, the golden goose is to combine two weak characters that produces a strong vocabulary word. Otherwise, we go down the list. We'll talk about this like in the 600-day review, like how did I prioritize words and word discovery, because it's an active decision I'm making. Now we're looking for words that have the contextual understanding that ideally strengthens the weak characters, whether it's paired with another weak character, which is awesome, it's the biggest bang for our buck, or pair it with a semi-strong character that kind of reinforces the thing. And then we have a backup, which is take a strong foundational character and combine it with a weak character to embellish them together, right? And meanwhile, in the background, I've already set this, we've been eventually our characters are going to be mastered, right? These characters right here, I actually practice these characters. So what I mean is I occasionally go over these characters and think about what type of sentences would be in them. The list is fairly small right now because it takes a very long time. It's a 4 or 5 month period before the last mastering step. So it gives me plenty of time to manage this. And I'll probably manage this in my own, like I'm managing this in the background right now as a way to solidify going back up. So these, again, the curriculum, this is curriculum based. So the beginning curriculums are incredibly reliable. Like this is HSK 1. Like the way HanziHero is organized by whatever the HSK curriculum is. So all these characters are foundational characters. So I'm going back through them as a way of, in the future, the moment we start writing sentences, maybe a month or two from now, I will be incorporating most of the foundational characters as frequently as I can in my compositions. So like ge is a place, like a counter, right? A counter placeholder. I can talk about Hanzi all the time, that type of thing, right? So that's what I'm doing in the background as a teaser, and I'll be talking about this it's coming about now. Like I had a specific plan, sort of, and I'm testing it. I didn't talk about it in detail because I need to start doing it in order to see what my routine is going to be like. So I'm settling on this routine. It's really nice. I'm not here like beating myself over the head like, should I spend 3 or 5 minutes decomposing all the radicals now, right? Like before, I would sit there and try to collect all the permutations. Now we have a different routine that's baked into a time limit for the character studies, and that's through word discovery. And then I'm focusing far more on looking at the connections between all the characters. So now I'm not worried about whether I can write a mnemonic for the characters or the looseness of the characters and the strictness in a sense of the characters, because now the characters have to be strict. So now I'm adding all the strict nuances to the characters going backwards. So now characters are going to take up two or more like meanings that are reflective of their words. So instead of looking at a character with one primary definition, or even in the future, I've been talking about this earlier, like how am I going to get to 2 reads or a tone shift? I will eventually have to incorporate that, because the characters now are going to grow out of their respective thing. So when I'm looking at a character now, I'm not specifically thinking what did I memorize the first time. It's what did I memorize the first time with how it's related to the new things that I have to get through. So the downside, one mechanical problem I can see here that I will have to like fill in myself is that maybe this might get added as a feature. I would love to see these dictionary items be in the character items. So like, for example, if we take our latest stage characters, right? Like not unknown, like the non-HSK stuff, right? If I click on this, let's see if I have a character right off the back that I added a vocabulary word for. Oh no, you know what? It's faster if we do it this way. So say I click on this character, I click on this word, right? And I click on these things. In this section, there's no dictionary word that added. So like there's no cross-referencing from when I add a word, it doesn't show up underneath the related vocabulary words. So that would be a great feature in the future if they're adding that, because it lends well to my current workflow. It lends well to my workflow in using and networking all the words. It's not necessary. I can simply type it in. So that's a thought right now. Anyways, it looks like this list doesn't end. They don't like truncate it. The before, when I was doing the other way, this ends at 121 and then it just puts a ... at the end, so you can't expand it to its max. But it looks like this went beyond 121. So we'll see how long this list gets. It could go like infinite scroll for all I care, and it would be helpful to me because it looks like it's in chronological order. So the top part is the most recent additions that I have, and the bottom right is the latest one. Once these things get filled in for tomorrow's lesson, they go up here. So we're working with the current design that HanziHero has. Anyways, that's the goal right now. I might continue to do this for all of July while I try to transition all my Boom Pro stuff. We'll see. I don't want to do too many things all at once. It's quite taxing to juggle like 2 or 3 different transitions at the same time while also having other projects going. So that will be on the docket. Anyways, that's a wrap for HanziHero today. If you're gonna watch this later, just here. As always, feel free to follow along, pick up HanziHero for yourself, give it a go. You're always welcome to come on by, yap, discuss, exchange ideas, talk about philosophy. I don't know, like I am more than a conduit and enabler, right, on stream. Take it with a grain of salt. This is an open invitation. I like being nice on my own terms. So if you want someone to listen, maybe even preach, enable each other, motivate each other, this would be the time. Obviously, more than welcome to hit the Discord. The Discord is when I truly have an undivided attention. So that can come off as a little bit, it can be a little extreme and intense. So there's a lot of projection of my own opinions and stuff when I'm undivided. Here, I think I put my foot forward first, like myself far more. I am at my, when I'm streaming, I am prepared to stream each day. So I have already set myself up to be at my best during stream. Like this might be a really big deep cut. I go to work at my best. So even, and yes, we already made that joke that technically this isn't work. I'm not obligated to do this. Generally, when I want to work, as in I want to learn, I want to do something, I am at my best to do it. Not at my worst because I have to. That was one of the distinguishing factors between, at least in my opinion, between some of my coworkers or people that I've come to know and really appreciate what they have to deal with. Generally speaking, the task that I want to improve upon the most, the things that matter to me the most, I set myself up to be the best when I'm doing it. So when I'm streaming, my energy level is peak. It is at its peak. It is at its best. So hear me out. I don't want to give people the impression that I'm like this every day of my life and throughout the day. I know it seems like that when you think about content creators or think about what your perceptions of your parasocial relationship with your favorite YouTube content creator. And I honestly think that the ones that can resonate with me, like Hank and John Green and whatnot, I talk about them a lot. They talk about these things. They don't show it necessarily. Like, they're not going to show you when they're lower in energy and stuff. They put their perceptions forward at their best. So keeping in mind that nearly every person who makes content outside the AI, slop that you might see, I can't believe I have to say that now. Outside of AI slop, right? Humans present themselves in the best they can in order to promote the best version of themselves. And then those who feel like sharing would typically say that their best self is what they produce, right? The artwork, the stuff that they publish, it's the best they can do at the time. So keeping in mind that outside of it, do not be surprised when the people you have parasocial relationships with have times when they're tired, struggling, coping, recovering from mania. I think there are obviously varying levels of openness about this. For myself, I don't run from that. Like, I am at my best when I am streaming. Like, I'm not at my best because of streaming. That is very different from someone who is coping. People who are coping, they believe streaming brings out the best in them. For me, I put my best into streaming, and if it elevates my best, then that's a bonus. I'm not dependent on streaming to bring out the best in me. I'm bringing my best to streaming. So I want to keep that in mind, that if you catch me like when I'm not streaming, I don't want to give anyone the impression that somehow I can be this way all the time. It is me being the best I can, and it's all of me that I don't necessarily have the ability to share or want to share. I don't desire, again, the whole niceness and kindness. I don't want to see people when I don't want to show people, like, be available to people when I'm weak, right? Like, if I want to be helpful and whatnot, I am obligated, at least in my opinion, in my responsibility, to not show myself be available when I'm weak. So if I'm struggling with a problem or an anxiety problem, I think it's within my choice to not show that weakness to other people when they may require my attention or something. I truly believe in the concept of when one is ready, they make themselves available, and then they take on the responsibility knowing that it can happen. So I do not stream when I'm tired. I do not stream, well, with the asterisks, right? I don't stream when I can't talk to people. I don't stream when I think that the habitual obligations of streaming will derail me. Like, that's kind of one of those things. Like, I choose to stream my studies because I understand that live streaming would involve interacting with other people. I rarely am a person who says, oh, I'm going to stream because it brings the best out of me, but I don't want to talk to anyone. Like, but one of the natural properties of streaming is you interact with other people. So for me, that comes first. It's actually the first priority. Otherwise, I can just study to myself. You can even record yourself without streaming. You don't have to stream it. You can record it and then post it on YouTube, right? I chose to stream. So I want to make that clear. when I'm doing something, I'm at my best if it involves other people. That whole kindness and niceness thing is very real. I still have problems with that. I am far more nicer when I'm doing work that can possibly help someone. I'm far less kind to myself. So when someone catches me when I'm not streaming, I could be in a worse place. Like, I could be low in energy, right? I could be resting. Maybe I'm not 24/7 up to snuff, and I might say things with low energy. That's going to happen. So I want to make sure this comes full circle. There's no way that I can ever be like what I am on stream 24/7. It's the whole thing. There are times during the day my energy level is highest in the beginning of the day. So I choose to stream and do everything in the beginning of the day. As the days fade, you can still see it. I tend to organize my activities based on how rigorous it is. So with that said, I'm going to move on to Dave the Diver, which is a video game, and it helps me relax and practice as opposed to consistently learning and looking at solving mistakes and whatnot. I still can digress all the time because digression is the lowest effort that I have. Learning things is the highest effort. Learning and listening to other people's problems require high effort. So that's what I mean when I say when people are kind to themselves, it also enables them to be kind to others, or even enables them to be nice to others. I do earnestly believe that if someone can't be kind to themselves or regulate what they can do when they do it, they are unable to make themselves readily available at the time that they are most useful to other people. I understand when I am tired, so I don't make myself available when I'm tired. The thing that could illustrate this is that when you're tired and you're trying to help someone, you are equally as likely, if not more likely, to make the situation worse. So that's kind of the thing. I very much value, I habitually value other people's well-being over myself. I think I have an excellent ride so far, and I've experienced a lot of what life has to offer. So whenever I look at young people, that's why I kind of am a bit biased towards young people, because they have more time in the future. So my impressions that I can leave on anyone has to proportionally reciprocate how valuable they are. I'm not saying old people are less valuable than young people. Old people, when we interact, we have a give or take. Like people of my age, when you are resonating with someone, right, you are giving and taking at the same time. So that means that the effort I put forth is likely to also be alleviated and complemented by someone. When you're thinking about a young person, you are giving. Like, you are more likely giving all of your time because you want to see that investment become something later, or live long enough at least to see it, right? It sounds like a decision made. However, it's also a natural order of what I believe is a natural order. When people have children, right? For example, when you become a father or a mother, you give everything to your child. Your child is not yet responsible in reciprocating everything. It would be great in an ideal world that somehow you're born with the maturity of compromise and like problem solving and whatnot. That is unreasonable, philosophically illogical, as even biologically illogical to expect that. So oftentimes I am unconditionally willing to give the younger people get, because they require an investment forward when it comes to the human condition. Now, as an adult, we can give and take, right? Like, if I meet someone who's older than me, in fact, if I occasionally this has happened, like less than 1%. If I meet someone who's older than me, I'm actually asking them questions. I'm asking them what can they help me with. Like, I want to hear their wisdom, because they are even more likely, if they are a successful older adult, like a 60-year-old, they are more likely be able to potentially share the same opinion I have when I'm a 40-year-old looking at a 20-year-old. That's the idea. You're passing investment forward. It was all the people who are now almost in their 60s or in their 60s now that made me who I was when I was 20. Like, they contributed, right? So when I was 20, they were 40. And I'm a product of that. So I echo again, you're more than welcome to follow along, pick up HanziHero for yourself, give it a try, right? Come on by, yap, discuss, exchange ideas, keep each other motivated. Until next time, 大家下次见，感谢观看. See you guys next time. I'm gonna take a quick break, stretch, and take a quick bathroom break, and I will be back for Dave the Diver. Thank you.